What happened to Loma? Vasyl Lomachenko was one of the hottest up-and-coming prospects in boxing many years ago, but a couple of losses really set him back from being cemented as one of the greatest, so this is the unfortunate career of Vasyl Lomachenko.
So Loma definitely had an interesting career. He was a two-time Olympic gold medalist, one of the greatest amateur boxers of all time with like a 401 record. The guy was an absolute master of boxing. As his nickname presents, he goes in the matrix. His footwork, his ability to change angles. He originally grew up as a dancer, and that kind of translated into boxing as his footwork became what he was really known for in the ring. He had some of the greatest footwork we've seen, and early on into his career, his first ever fight, he was fighting for an international featherweight title, and in his second fight, literally fought for the WBO featherweight title against Orlando Salido. So the guy was definitely thrown into the deep end into his pro career, to say the least, because he already had this pedigree in the amateurs, in the Olympics. People already knew what caliber of fighter Lomachenko was, so why not just throw him straight into the deep end, right into the biggest fights? Back in 2013, when he went pro and he had a very controversial fight against Salido in his second fight. Obviously, Salido missing weight, then all the glow blow controversy, and that fight going to Salido via split decision. So an early loss in Lomachenko's career, as he was fast-tracked to say the least against some of the greatest fighters in his division already. He then went on to fight undefeated Gary Allen Russell Jr., beat him, and continued to do his thing for years, and definitely fought a lot of top guys, but for years wasn't really able to solidify and cement that huge mega money fight.
Yeah, Lomachenko had done the unbelievable very early into his career, winning a world title in his third fight ever, which is unprecedented, unseen, and just a remarkable achievement. And it made sense still. He was getting these title fights. Like you said, everyone knew what Loma was going to do, turning pro. Most amateur fights and then turn pro fairly late, getting title fights early. After his first loss was split decision, he would go on a big unbeaten streak, beating the likes of Nicholas Walters, beating Jorge Linares, Jose Pedraza, Anthony Corolla, and Luke Campbell, a fellow Olympic gold medalist. And in these fights, we really saw why Lomachenko is the Matrix, using his beautiful technique, being an amazing southpaw boxer, managing distance perfectly with his fantastic footwork, using his incredible feints to out-trick, out-maneuver, outsmart everyone he would come across. And the guy just seemed like he was always 2 steps ahead of everyone. Yes, he's not the most powerful puncher. He's in the lower weight classes. He doesn't need to be that. He was so talented, so good at the game that he was able to break everyone down, break down their style, and implement a game plan to dominate them. And this is just why he went on such a big winning streak, and when he would fight, it would just be effortless. So when he was looking to get a massive fight against the up-and-comers like Tank Davis, for so long, these fights were just not able to happen. He wasn't able to get the fights against these big names that would solidify him as an all-time great. We could see all the skills throughout his fights, but without the dance partner to put his name in the history books, it was kind of hard for Loma to fully solidify himself and appeal to the more mainstream media. But nonetheless, it was definitely a great start to Lomachenko's pro career.
Yeah, at the time, Lomachenko was considered a pound-for-pound top guy. People forget, but he was ranked in a lot of people's #1 pound-for-pound back in like 2019. He was a 3-division world champion, beating everyone in his path, moving up to weight classes that he seemed to be the smaller guy in and kind of outsized at 135. And Loma kind of has this deceptive power. Like you said, he's not really a power puncher, but he could crack, he could punch. And with how good he is with that footwork and creating angles, he's also good at finding the right angle to put you down. So he was just on a tear. He looked to be one of the greatest boxers in the world. But when he met the young, undefeated, up-and-coming Teofimo Lopez, he was a massive favorite to get the win, which did not end up going his way in the ring, which a lot of people put that down to Loma's injuries. He had a hurt shoulder, but Teofimo, who's been studying Loma's career, who's been watching him from since he was young, was just able to put on pretty much a clinic. It wasn't a complete masterclass. Lomachenko is a notorious slow starter, so obviously those first couple of rounds, Teo kind of took them, but even the later the fight went on, Lomachenko struggled to change the tide his way, and Teofimo did end up winning that fight, which was a pretty tough setback for Lomachenko, being on top of the world, being considered one of the top pound for pound guys, and then to lose to a young up and coming guy in Teofimo Lopez, who would then go in the next year and lose his titles to Kambosos. It was just definitely a very tough loss in his career.
Yeah, this loss definitely set him back a lot, losing his belts to the young guy, the up-and-coming guy, and essentially halting his superstardom in the boxing world. But then he would go on to have some rebound fights against the likes of Nagatani, an amazing performance against Richard Comey, in which he dropped Comey in the 7th round, was begging his corner to stop the fight repeatedly because he was dominating him so badly. And there we saw that Lomachenko was still here. He was still fighting to be the top of the division no matter what, would then have a unanimous decision win against Jermaine Ortiz, and would finally get his opportunity to get the belts back against another young guy coming up, Devin Haney, in which this fight was for undisputed at lightweight. Devin Haney was undefeated, looking to be a very strong force in the lightweight division, and this fight was very controversial. Both guys had their moments, but we were seeing vintage Lomachenko against very hard competition. He was showing to outclass, honestly, Devin Haney, and many thought that he picked up this win, edging Haney out in the decision, and it ended up being on the scorecards. Devin Haney got the win, and to be honest, I thought watching that fight, Lomachenko won. He did enough to win the rounds decisively. He had many moments of success. He was throwing the more impactful punches, the better combinations. Of course, Devin Haney did have his moments of success using his jab, and as well he was mainly focusing to the body. He had most of his success there against Loma. But nonetheless, Loma had the better combinations. He was more the aggressor, and honestly, I thought he did more to win that fight. However, the judges did not see it that way, and he ended up losing.
Yeah, this was really the last kind of hurrah, the last chance for Lomachenko to solidify himself as an undisputed world champion. He never got that undisputed status, and to beat the likes of Devin Haney, an up-and-coming talent in the sport, this would have set him apart. This would have put him down as easily one of the best in the world, and especially in this generation. But having that as a loss on his record, we saw how much it meant to him backstage, as obviously this affected him greatly. He was very emotional, and it was just tough to see, because this meant the world for Loma. If he beat Haney, imagine the opportunities he would have got. He might have even got that Ryan Garcia fight. He could have got that Tank Davis fight. He could have got those massive opportunities in the sport, but instead they went the other way. And obviously it was a close fight. It's not like Loma dominated, but I did think that Lomachenko did enough to win, but it was a close fight. I could have seen a draw, or just some of the judges favoring that body work from Devin Haney. And especially the era that Lomachenko really thrived in, undefeated status kind of meant the world in boxing. If you weren't undefeated, people would count you out, and it's kind of that Mayweather effect, as people think if you have losses on your record, you're not that good, and that diminishes your accomplishment, that diminishes your career. But at the end of the day, Lomachenko accomplished a lot in both his amateur, pro, and Olympic careers, so it's obviously harsh, but to have those blemishes in his career, to the likes of Teofimo Lopez, to Salido, and recently to Devin Haney, it's just tough to come back from, especially now at 37 years old, at those lighter weight divisions. All these guys coming up are definitely a lot younger than that. Lomachenko is kind of on his way out, and it seems like even now he's contemplating retirement, but not before he went to Australia in George Kambosos' backyard and put on a masterclass.
Yeah, and if this was Loma's last fight, it was nice we got to see vintage Loma. Him using all the skills at his disposal, using the angles, using the light-footedness, the footwork, to put a dominating performance on George Kambosos, who is the one who defeated Teofimo Lopez originally to give him his first loss in another upset, ironically too. But Lomachenko was able to destroy Kambosos, dropping him twice in the 11th round, winning with brutal body shots that put Kambosos down. And it would be very unfortunate if this is Lomachenko's last fight, sadly. He should have been able to do a lot more in the sport, honestly. And there had been talks for so long of this Tank Davis fight, even after the Kambosos win. There were still talks of this might happen, and there were many claims that first Tank was ducking all these years, and now that Loma seems to be headed towards possibly retirement, now people are saying that Loma is ducking. But regardless, this fight should have happened years earlier, and now with Tank Davis having a draw against Lamont Roach and is going to be rematching him, it just seems very unlikely we ever see that fight, sadly. And it would have been an amazing one, either a passing of the torch or Loma showing that he is a top dog and one of the best of this generation.
But people forget he was thrown into the deep end so early on into his career that he's been fighting the top competition pretty much since like 2015. Like, he's nonstop pretty much been fighting elite guys. So when you see his record, oh, it's 18-3. He has 3 losses out of 21 fights. It's really not that simple. He didn't just pad his record like 99% of boxers and a lot of the top guys. 20 wins early on into his career in Mexico in random fights that no one's ever seen. Like, no, he was thrown to the deep end early. The pressure was on. As this great amateur, as this great Olympian, the expectations were high for Loma from the start, and he definitely met them in his pro career, and to still be one of the best boxers in the world, destroying Kambosos pretty much with ease just last year. He's definitely had a very impressive career, but just unfortunate that he was never really able to secure a mega fight and break through and beat any of the huge big names around his weight and his division. But he's accomplished many great things. If he doesn't get a Gervonta Davis fight within the next maybe 6 months, I don't know what else there is really left for Vasyl Lomachenko. Maybe you could fight the likes of Shakur Stevenson or another one of these guys who are at the top of the lightweight division right now. But even then, Lomachenko is now 37 years old. He's probably not going to be the same guy for that much longer. I don't know how much he really has left, but when you look at the other fighters around his weight class, the Devin Haney's, the Ryan Garcias, the Teofimo Lopez's, the Shakur Stevensons, they're like in their mid-20s, which is pretty much when Loma went pro. He didn't go pro in his teens or in his early 20s like most of these guys. He had an extensive amateur career, but he's also done great things in the pros. A 3-division world champion, at one point considered a top pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and he's definitely one of the best boxers we've seen and definitely a great of this generation. I still think he's a future Hall of Famer. I still think he will be cemented in the history books as a master of boxing, but it's just unfortunate he was never able to get that undisputed status or win one of those massive fights, because I feel like he had the talent for it. I feel like his skills and what he's able to do on his best night in the ring is just unmatched. The weapons at his disposal, the footwork, the elusiveness, the crisp hands, the shot selection, the power, he could do it all in the ring. He's definitely a master of it. But in his pro career, a series of unfortunate events have kind of stopped him from going down as one of the greats. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on Vasyl Lomachenko's career. And if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and check out the video on screen on the greatest boxers in the world.